4-1. Thank you. Moving forward, Mr. Sandstrom, can you tell us about the Bel-Air Sanitation site and why that's maybe going away tonight?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is an old conditional use permit or special use permit at 8678 75th Street North. Used to be Bellaire Sanitation, and it's now the site of the school district's property. It's being used for their purposes, no longer used as Bellaire Sanitation, and has not been for some time. And so staff is recommending that we vacate this conditional use permit as well.
Thank you very much. That would seem to make sense since it's not in use there and hasn't been for several decades. All right, let's go ahead and open up the public comment on this. And before we do that, I just feel like a responsible mayor would say this first before we open this up. I've heard that there's folks out there saying that somehow or another the Wildwood school is going to be shut down. Well, that's some wild conjecture there. Sounds like the National Enquirer has taken root in Grant, and we're getting some real good news off of that. I'd be very careful where we get our news, folks. A lot of times there are personal agendas, grievances, that type of thing behind some of the news that we read. And it's always good to check with our clerk. I know she's had probably 100 phone calls here in the last few days. I'm very surprised we have open seats from the number of calls I've gotten. But we calm these people down and kind of tell them what's really happening here and not to believe the National Enquirer, as it were. So I'm going to go ahead and open a public comment period here for the Bel-Air Sanitation CUP, pardon me, that we are considering vacating. So that is open right now. Do I have any commenters on the vacation of that? Oh, thank you, sir. Have a good evening. Your name and address, please, sir?
Good evening, Council. I am Bob Zick.
And your address.
Insight News Hour. Property, financial, and business interests in Grant.
So you have no address in Grant, sir? Is that
Good,
correct?
Mayor, that's it. That's
Okay.
it. That's
Thank
it.
you,
That's
sir.
all just required. You gotta learn.
Thank you,
learn.
sir.
Besides,
All right. Very good now.
You gotta learn. This
Okay.
is my time. You just said you're supposed to listen.
Thank you,
We're
sir.
supposed to talk. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank
now
you,
be
sir.
quiet. Thank you, Mayor. That's wonderful.
Careful.
It's hard for you to do.
Okay.
It's hard for you to do.
Go ahead, sir.
All right, now I want to start out and comment what the acting attorney over there does and your comments. I don't believe that a public hearing, that when somebody asks a question, that you're prevented from responding to that. I don't know that that's part of a public hearing law. So when a citizen asks a reasonable question, I think a reasonable answer is in order. I'll start out with that. Now, second, on these conditional use permits, unless there's something in that conditional use permit to begin with that says if it's not utilized in a certain time period, it goes away, those conditional use permits have real value. The mayor talked about this with gravel pits. So regardless, that if there's a conditional use permit that has real value, I think the property owner has to certify some way, not a verbal conversation, but actually in writing, that they are requesting the removal of that conditional use permit. Now, the attorney over there said, well, you know, we have these old conditional use permits out there, and the neighbors move in, like around the gun range, Bald Eagle gun range up there.
We're talking school. Here's school now. Bel-Air. None of this bullshit that we're here on.
That's enough, sir.
Thank you, officer. Thank
Mr.
you.
Zick,
This is
Mr. Zick,
This is my-
address the council, please.
Okay, so the neighbors move in, and pretty soon there's pressure to close the gun range down. Now, the city attorney over there, I would hope he was a smart guy, would tell the people that are buying property, you know, you need to do some research and find out what your neighbor's property can be used for. If there's a conditional use permit on there, even though it's not being used, you better know that. You don't get to come in and say, well, the airport has to go away, or the train track need to move, because I'm here and I want solitude. I want to believe I'm living in North Oaks in a gated community. Doesn't work that way. So now, the other concern I have is you're vacating these conditional use permits. It would be nice that we had a copy of those conditional use permits so we could see what the conditions are and how they apply. Now, this is the Wildwood school site, and so what conditions might be on that property, like the conditional use permit that says they have to monitor every year the pollutants in the ground. Now, I don't believe that's being done. So is this board gonna enforce the conditional use permit?
Sir, the Bel-Air conditional use
Is this
permit
my
that we
time?
are,
Are you
talking.
responding now?
I'm going to go ahead and clarify here for the audience. The Bel-Air conditional use permit has nothing to do with the school, and it certainly has nothing to do with testing. That would be the school CUP, which we are not talking about. I'm just trying to clarify your remarks for you, sir.
Well, that's fine, and I would hope you would clarify anybody else's question.
I shall attempt.
That would be real considerate of you,
Thank you.
Mayor. But again, I do not know what's in that conditional use permit that's on that property, because that conditional use permit went with that property in perpetuity. So now, if there's something in there that would protect the health and safety of the children, the teachers, anybody's there, I would hope that that's looked at and that we just don't vacate things that actually are of public value. And I would also hope that the conditional use permit that the school district has on that property is enforced. You have a school.
Okay, that is
built
not
on a
Bel-Air,
former
sir.
Superfund
Not
site.
Bel-Air, sir. We're not
And
talking
that's
about
Bellaire
that.
Sanitation
Sir,
that this
again,
applies to.
clarify
Thank
your
you,
remarks,
Mayor.
please, to
You're very-
Bel-Air.
Very considerate.
Thank you, sir, very much. Thank you now. All right, anyone else? Mr. Drost, name and address, please.
Jim Drost, 8685. 8682 Jamaica Avenue, sorry. In the first place, places like Bel-Air and some of the other ones that you brought up have been defunct. For example, the firing range or shooting range has been defunct since 1995 or sooner. I mean, so therefore, the CUP can't apply anymore because it's not there and it's owned by somebody else. And it was negated through the courts. So it is not available anymore. Next, the Bel-Air trash pile is the same thing. It now belongs to the school or whoever is going to do it, put up a ice rink or whatever it is they're talking about. It hasn't been a functioning place and can never function again because the Minnesota EPA and the federal EPA didn't want it, and they went against it. So you have no choice but to remove it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next. Name and address, please.
Wally Anderson, 8833 80th Street North. Mayor, council members, it would be helpful if we knew what the CUP was all about in order to comment on it. I'm a neighbor to this property, and the CUP does run with the land, as you've expounded before, and the conditions of the CUP do run with the land too. So it would be helpful if we knew what the CUP would involve that mitigate or got the conditions going in the first place.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Name and address, please.
Tim Kinley.
Can I get your address, sir?
No, I'm not going to do that. I
I'm not
don't
going to
have
do that. Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Kinley.
Just in the if a CUP adds value to a property and you take it away, you gotta eminent domain it. So I just would consider that with the, when you're looking at these CUPs. I mean, if somebody can generate, and even if you have a covenant, the covenant can be changed, you know, by the people who make the covenant. So there's still a value there, and so there's value in these CUPs. And with the this current CUP we're talking about, because we don't know what the details are of it, was there something that having to do with it being cleaned up or it being monitored? Who's monitoring it? There's an economic value there that's taking place, especially when you're dealing with pollution and garbage and the effects on the community. So when you get rid of these, you know, somebody can come back and say, hey, this is you're eminent domaining a value that I have. So you may end up owing some money, having to make payouts. Second of all, was the decision to clean up the conditional use permit decided at the mayor's and Mahtomedi School District meeting? Also, are the citizens welcome to attend and record the school district and mayor's meetings without threat of arrest? Okay, you're discussing policy in these meetings and what you want to do and what you think, but you know, press comes, they're under threat of arrest. I was. So where and when do these meetings take place? When the mayors get together and the school boards and the school administration, or a combination of these, and discuss these policies? And are minutes taken at these meetings as far as getting rid of the CUPs? So, you know, who decided this? Was it Mayor Judd Marshall or Mayor Jeff Huber? Who decided to prepare the Mahtomedi School District and the 186 acres across the street for annexation into the city of Mahtomedi? You know, so thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sharon?
Hi, Sharon Schwartz, 10707 Joliet Avenue North, actual resident of Grant.
Thank you, Sharon. Yay! A resident.
Oh, no, but I would just like to comment that this was an old CUP, and Kim did an excellent job of posting all of the information the city had on the CUP on the website, that people, anyone, even in North St. Paul, can read our website and read all the details that we have on this CUP. And I would also like to comment that if the school district really wanted to have a transport station on their land, they would have told Kim that when she contacted them, and they would have appeared here tonight to protect their own interests as they were notified by the city lawfully. And they don't want it, and they don't have to have it, even if other people think that they should have it. And the city did a good job investigating all the pollution and putting in all of the necessary controls for reporting on the property. In the conditional use permit that the school district has, which is recorded, which you can go down to the county and get a copy of. It's all public data.
Correct. Thank you, Sharon. That's exactly right. Anyone else, please? Clerk.
Mayor and council members, for the public record, for the public hearing, I do have a letter from Mark Larson, the superintendent, ISD 832. Mahtomedi Public Schools authorizes the city of Grant to vacate the Bellaire Sanitation portion of the conditional use permit at 8678 75th Street North.
Thank you, Kim.
Question, Mayor. When these get vacated and they're registered at the county, do they get purged from the county, or will there be a record there? And the reason I ask this question, I'm sure Superintendent Mark Larson would find it advantageous to remove any record that the Wildwood Elementary School is, or the other schools are built on a former Superfund dump site. So in this case, yeah, there would be an advantage for the superintendent to want that to happen. But as citizens, does that record stay there? So in the future, if there's litigation by parents on behalf of their children that have come down with cancer or something, is this going to be there so they can have one more piece of the puzzle to prove that, yes, there was a Superfund site there?
Anyone else? All right. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing. Second.
All those in favor of closing public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We've got 5-0 there. Mr. Carr?
Yes, thank you for Mark sending the letter that he doesn't want to run a shredder down at the school. That would probably be frowned upon by the parents bringing their kids. I have a question for our attorney. I mean, we've had overlapping, obviously, CUPs. I mean, I suppose that can happen, multiple uses on a property with multiple CUPs. But for our attorney, I would just ask Kevin to give us his opinion on having 2 overlapping CUPs on a piece of property.
Well, certainly it's possible. A conditional use permit is just a document that allows a particular use to occur on a property. And as you point out, Councilmember Carr, multiple uses can occur in a single time frame, and one conditional use permit can be removed but not another.
Okay, my follow-up to that is just making sure I had your opinion, which I value. So I just think that, when you have a landowner that has something like this on the property, and all I've heard about from people that, especially people that don't live in Grant, which is interesting, about how valuable these CUPs are. Yeah, if you're going to use them. If you're not going to use them, they're not valuable. They're a hindrance. They're a problem. They cause problems. Yeah, they do. So they cause problems. People want to buy your property. They want to run, do something on your property. And not only do they find out, well, yeah, I have a gravel pit in the back that you can use, and it's a CUP on it. Well, when do they come and get the gravel? They have an easement. Well, that's not what I want. I want to build this here. I want to build a horse barn. Well, they can't do that because they have a CUP on there that it runs with the land, and they can't get rid of it. So it's not always a help to have a CUP on a property. It can be a hindrance. And multiple people have come forward before. They want to get rid of them because they're a problem. We had somebody in a corner out here, they couldn't build a church. Person was trying to sell their property. They bought that property. They wanted it gone because it was a problem. It's recorded at the county. It's a problem. Title people look at it and go, what is this? So it's not always a help, it's a hindrance. Just pointing that out. So I just think in this case, we have 2 separate things. I really don't like how people keep dragging the district into it. It's not their problem, it's our problem. It's our permit, it's not their permit. We give them, they do not. So it's our permit. We can pull it when we want to, and if we want to, we don't even have to ask, we don't even have to get their permission. We can still have a public hearing and pull it. In this case, we have their permission. So I don't know what this is all about. It seems pretty just doesn't make any sense. So it's an easy thing for me to just justify, and I think we should just go forward and do it. Thank you.
I'm going to jump in here just real quick here before anyone else, because I just want to clear up a couple of legal items. Hang on one second, Larry. We'll clear it up, and then you're up. Kevin, I hear this bandied about occasionally that a CUP has some sort of a defined value, and that the city, after the proper notification process and public hearing, removing that CUP from a property or vacating that CUP is some sort of eminent domain action. Can you describe the difference between eminent domain and public use and vacating a CUP for us, please?
Certainly, if eminent domain comes into play when a government entity takes property away from someone. And in this case, I don't think we're taking away anything because these are not conditional use permits that are being used. And frankly, if a property owner came in and said, yes, I intend to reconstitute the Lone Oak Sportsman's Club and I want to restart this, or I want to restart the Bellaire Sanitation transfer station, I think they would have a right to come in and object, and then we'd have to give some more serious consideration to the issue as to whether or not the CUP should be vacated. But in trying to clean up ancient records for uses that are no longer in use, when we've given notification to the property owner that their old CUP is up for vacation, when they don't show up to object, I don't see any sort of eminent domain issue coming into play in that case.
Okay, so you don't see a securing of value, especially when you're getting permission for it to be withdrawn. And again, these things can be a great hindrance to certain property owners. You're trying to do something on your property, you've got a CUP stuck on there that's never been used or was used in the past. You need that off. I've seen that happen before, even in real estate transactions. Mr. Lanu, you had a point?
Yeah. Brad, the very parcel talking about was formerly a transfer station. Correct?
Do you have any?
We're vacating a transfer station, so what you're saying, that's where the transfer station is that we're vacating.
I would.
It was on the school
Yeah.
property.
Brad, if that, just one moment. Brad, if that is not your area of expertise, I do not expect you to jump into this and start offering guesses. In fact, I don't want to hear your guesses. You don't have the history probably necessary to answer some of that, so I'd appreciate if you did. Mr. Carr, do you have something?
Witness.
I'm not
No,
done
no, I know
yet.
you,
I'm
I
not
know.
Point of order.
No,
I
you-
am not
Let's see
done.
if you can
You
help
wanted a witness.
You have your time.
You wanted a
You'll have your
witness.
time, sir. You'll
There
get
was
your
a
time.
transportation, or there was a transfer station there. I was there.
Yeah,
I'm
you were
done.
there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Go ahead,
right.
Larry.
So the point I've got to talk about is we got a transfer station, and that's where the Lust site was. The leaky underground storage tank, that's where the hot spots were. That's where the 6 soil borings that were not recorded when they approved the plans for this. Have you,
Prove the plans for what? The Bel-Air sanitation site?
the school site, where the transfer station was?
No, the transfer station was hundreds of yards from the school site.
No, it wasn't.
Sure it was.
No,
You're
it
thinking,
wasn't.
you're thinking of the waste transfer site that's currently on 75th and Jamaica, the active one, Waste Busters.
No, Mr.
No?
Mayor,
No?
Mr. Huber, if you just sit down and
Okay,
listen.
well, go ahead.
I can get you drawings and bring them to you next week.
Very good, sir.
But the transfer station that had the 6 hot spots, and now you've got a pond down there, and it's between the natural gas station and the sanitary
Let 'em go. Let 'em go.
lift station that you have over there. You have a pond over there that does not hold water, correct?
I'm not aware.
Okay, you're not aware, because you and I have talked about it in the past, all right?
I'm not sure which pond you're referring to, Larry.
The one right along 75th that's dry after a 2-inch rain. And my question is, how many times it says in their conditional use permit, they must annually test twice a year all the ponds when the conditional use permit was
We are
issued for
not
that.
talking about the school's
We're
conditional
talking about
use
the same
permit.
transfer
The
station
Bel-Air,
we're trying to establish, okay?
you're talking about a CUP for the school. The school has not been notified. We'll be talking about their CUP. We will not be talking about their
We will be
CUP.
talking-
We will be talking about the
If you go to the
Bel-Air.
Grant Report and
The
wanna get the
Bel-Air.
news, go to the
Yes.
Grant Report.
Yes, please.
No,
Enough, enough.
Because you're not gonna get it
Enough,
from
enough.
here.
The National Enquirer in Grant.
Yeah,
Thanks,
National
Larry.
Enquirer.
Appreciate it.
Or you can go
All
to
right.
News and Grant Hill's website for half-truths and lies.
No.
But this talks about
Come on,
Superfund
Bel-Air,
being
the Bel-Air
reopened,
site, the Bel-Air
schools being
site, the
closed.
Bel-Air
Yeah,
site.
That's a Bel-Air site.
Talk about it. Talk about the CUP, or I'm gonna shut you down here.
The
Come
conditional
on.
use permit for the Bel-Air site, Brad,
Okay.
perhaps I can give you. If
There
you
we
go
go.
back there, there's a document over there. It'll show you the site, it'll show you the transfer station when it was in operation. That's what I'm talking about. It's sitting back there. If anybody wants to go pick up on the back of that table, you can physically see it.
So are you
It's a
happy
nice
we're
green-
getting rid of it, or what is your take on this? Are you happy we're doing this then?
Yeah, we
or-
should be getting rid of the transfer station, probably the transfer station of the abusive Oklahoma students that are coming in
Okay,
there
so,
not notified.
so your position is that all transfer stations then should be gotten rid of. That's an interesting position, Larry. We're gonna talk about that later on.
No,
We're gonna
you're-
talk about that in great detail later on, Larry. So
Because
the
we have a
Bel-Air,
question about it
the-
is these two gentlemen that gave the conditional use permits that required the annual testing twice a year, and as our city
That's,
engineer,
again,
have you
the
reviewed
the
that
school
on that
CUP.
particular where that transfer station was?
Okay,
Have
I'm
you
gonna,
seen the
I'm gonna shut you off here. Enough. We're not talking about the school CUP. They're not here to defend themselves, Larry. I warn you about this multiple times. These people are not here to defend themselves. We all
talking
know,
about a
we
conditional
all
use.
know. I have the
Exactly
floor.
what I'm talking about.
I have the floor, Mr. Lanu. Please, Mr. Lanu, please, calm yourself. Sir,
I think
we're
you can come
talking,
and take the gavel
sir,
away.
Guess what?
Oh, boy. Not yet, but I'm close to it. And I'm going to borrow that back from you, if you don't mind. Thanks. I'll put it on this side so it doesn't bother you. If we could just go ahead and concentrate on the Bel-Air Sanitation site, sir, that's the CUP we're getting rid of. I realize you don't like Wildwood School. We all know that. You've made it incredibly clear, but they are not here to defend either their record, their school, or their CUP. So when they are, you can go ahead and discuss that. So we have gone ahead and closed. We have gone ahead and closed the public hearing. Everyone's had their say on this. I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion to vacate this CUP.
I'll so move. I'll second.
All right. All those in favor of vacating an unused CUP called the Bel-Air Transfer Station, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. There you go, Larry. 5-0. We'll talk about other transfer stations later on. 5-0. Thank God we got that done, huh? All right, let's move on.
Mark it on a calendar, Ballman.
Right. We are going to move on to some important business, new business, which is our